Right, so I guess we'll get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome to our webinar for today. I'm going to be sharing with you a tool on the Mimio panel that's called Air Class. And it's a tool that I've really come to think that it's something every teacher should be trying to use at some point in their class, because it's a great way to try to engage students in the lesson and kind of break up your lesson and add some activities and some fun things to keep students focused and keep their attention. So first, I'm going to go through and just kind of share with you some of the information, and then we're going to actually go through and experience it on the panel itself. So it is a tool, and so it's something that you have access to no matter what is being shared on the screen, right? So at the bottom, in that bottom third of your menu, right, you'll have these tools. So unless you have changed it and edited your tools to make this one available all the time, you're going to have to click those three dots. And then usually it's the last tool available there called Air Class. It's got like a little student image with a 2+1 on a board. And so that's how you would turn that on. When you turn on the Air Class, it'll pop up and give you a menu. It does involve students joining this Air Class through a link. And so if it's secondary where you're using this, or any student that has a laptop, I would probably provide a link to that in my Schoology course, because the link never changes. No matter how many times you use Air Class with your students, it's always going to be the same link. It's the code that they enter to get into the Air Class that changes. So I would just put that link somewhere so that students have access to that when you want to use Air Class. On the student side, that link opens up and they have a place to enter that 6-digit code. And so when you open it on the panel, you'll get that 6-digit code. They enter it, they type in their name, and then they're a part of the Air Class for that day. This is what it would look like when you open it on the panel. You'll get this 6-digit code. It does share the link, but for me, it's just easier for you to already provide that link through Schoology or whatever way you might be sharing links with your students. And if you teach K2 and they have a mobile device or an iPad, there is an option here to open up a QR code. And then they just scan it with the camera. It'll automatically put them in the class and they just enter their name and then they're ready to go with Air Class. Once you have everybody in, the teacher will hit enter. And these are the basic tools that you're going to have when you're using Air Class. And really, these first three in green are the ones that you'll be using with your class every time that you use Air Class. The first one is a voter. It's just a way to kind of get some formative feedback from your students. And what I really like about it is that it's anonymous. So even though students are entering their name and their names will populate once they vote, the students in the class won't know who chose what. And so it keeps it anonymous. And I always feel that students are more likely to respond and be honest when there's no fear of others knowing what they chose or feeling like they have to follow their friend or things like that. So I think this is a good way to get that kind of authentic form of feedback. The responder is just kind of a quick response, really a way to gamify your classroom. And then you have the selector, which is just a random name selector. So it'll take all the students that are in the class and randomly select names. Message is a feature you could use, but until you have a really good classroom culture and some specific protocols in place, you might not want to do that. Manager will allow you to bring back up the website, the 6-digit code and the QR code for students to get in if they got kicked out or they came in late or whatever it might be. So that's a way to just kind of manage it. Then you have the ability to export some of the data that you get from that voter activity. Okay, so we'll go into more depth into all those tools here in a minute once we get started. This is what the voter looks like. You as the teacher still have the opportunity to manage and control when it begins. And then you also have the ability to let students pick one choice or multiple choices, depending on whatever question you want to pose to them. The next one we talked about was the responder. Well, from that, once you finish the voter, you might want to export that data, and it'll actually send a Excel file sheet to your files folder on the panel. And so you'll have data from that. And I can share that with you once we actually go through an activity. The responder app is just like a little drum roll that beats, and whoever clicks in first wins. So I like that gamification aspect of this particular activity. And then we have our random name selector. All right, so let's go ahead and get in and work with this a little bit. So as I mentioned before, maybe I should do it over here so it doesn't cut me off. You have your tools that you have access to, and right now I'm using the mini PC side of the panel. And so this is where I would do my lesson. And so when I want to, I would click the more, and then right over here is my air class. So I'm going to open air class, and it gives that 6-digit code. So for my students, they would click that link. Wherever I've provided it, it opens up this page, and then they can enter that 6-digit code, and it enters them in. You have the ability here to see how many students have joined, so you probably want to wait until you get all your students into that class. I'm going to go ahead and open up my camera and scan mine. If there's anybody in here, or if those that are in here helping me host or co-host, if you guys want to go ahead and enter that code and join, it'll make it a little bit better experience. So if I tap this, it brings up the QR code, and then there's an option here to make it larger, and that way students can scan it from a distance. I'm going to go ahead and scan that. What I like about the QR code, especially for the younger students, is that it automatically puts them into the class. So there is no code for them to enter, right? They just scan the code, and then on their device, there's a little text box for them to type their name. Okay, and then they hit enter, and they're in. Now, something to keep in mind when we're talking here about entering and using this code is that with this air class tool, there's no way to monitor or manage what students are typing. So you want to make sure before you use it, for that first time you use it, you need to make sure that the students know that they are supposed to enter their name a specific way, and you manage that, right? Do you want them to enter just their first name, just their last name, first initial, last name, even if it's just their student ID number? However you want them to enter it, make sure that that's kind of a rule that's set in place. Otherwise, the students are free to type in whatever they want. And then when their name pops up there, you don't have any kind of control over what's going to show up. So keep that in mind when you start using air class. I see I'm the only one in here right now, so it's going to be a little bit boring, but I'm going to go ahead and hit enter.
Herman,
Yes.
if you could you give us the web address for that? I'll tell you
Yes.
what.
So it's class.ifpshare.com. All right, so there's at least 2 of us. Thank you for joining. So anytime you need to open that up, now there's 3, right? No, you can always hit manager, and manager brings up that code again, or the QR code if you need students to scan it to get back into that class. Okay, so you can bring that up at any time throughout the day. All right, so I have this little menu that I can move around the panel wherever I need it to be out of the way. Please know that this is just a tool to enhance your lesson. It's not the lesson. And so it's going to just piggyback on what you're already going to be sharing with the students in a way to kind of break up and create some engaging activities for them to do that to go along with the lesson you've already planned, right? So you could start this and just kind of leave it floating there until you need it or want to use it. On the student side, you can see that they have some options here for that voter, and that's what they see in it. It'll show their name. Now they can't click OK. It's kind of grayed out. And they're not able to do that until I begin that voter activity. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the first activity, the voter activity. Okay, so as a student, you can see you have the options there, A through I. And here I have 3 participants right now, so I have 3 blank spaces here. So however many students you have, you're going to have those blank spaces there. And as students vote, it'll fill up with their names. And so it's kind of a way for you to track when your students have all given some sort of feedback to the question that you've given them. Remember, you can't control what names are going to pop up here, right? It's whatever the student entered. So hopefully you have some good classroom culture and some good rules and protocols in place so that you have an idea of what students will be putting up there. Again, you have the single choice, or you can let them select more than one, depending on what your question is. But remember, the question is not a part of air class. The question is going to come from your lesson and whatever activity you already have for the students. Okay. So I'm going to propose a question to you guys right now, and we'll just make it A, B, or C are your 3 options, right? So A is you're excited to learn this new Mimio tool, and you're going to be ready to use it starting tomorrow morning in your classroom. You're excited about that. B is you're excited and counting the days to get to our Thanksgiving break. Right? You really like that, and you just need a break, and it's been kind of a crazy couple of weeks. That's a B. C is all of the above. Okay, so those are your 3 choices. A, you're ready to use this panel and add this new tool. B, you're ready for a break. C, all of the above. Okay. When I hit begin, then you have an option between A, B, and C. I'll hit begin. And so now as a student, you should have the option on there to select and then hit OK. As the students vote, their names should populate up here. There's a bit of a delay, but eventually all those names will pop up, and you see that we have all those names there. So all the students in this particular class have voted. So once we see that, 4 out of 4, I'm going to hit finish, and then it's going to give me some data, right? My A, B, and C. So it's anonymous, right? And that's one thing I really like about it, is that the students in the class don't know who chose what. And whenever something like this is anonymous, I feel like you get a little bit better feedback, better data, because they're not concerned about being right or wrong or being judged by others or wanting to follow their friend or the student they feel is a smart kid in class, whatever it might be. And so they're free to answer a little bit more honestly. So I really like that about this voter activity, is that it's anonymous. And so now we get this data, the students can see it, but we can have like a conversation with partners or with small groups or even whole class. So let's look at the data, guys. Why do you think we all chose C, or more of us chose C than A and B? Let's have a discussion about that. And we don't even know what the right answer is yet. I, as the teacher, have the ability to come in here and it says, please choose the right answer. And so I pick which of these is the right answer. And once I do that, then the right answer turns green and the rest are red. And now we even have another opportunity to stop and talk and let students have conversations either with their partner, their small group, their team, or even just whole class, and have a discussion about why the students voted the way they did now, but knowing what is the correct answer and what is the incorrect answer. And then don't forget that after you've had these discussions and you have this data, really, air class isn't going to grade it for you, right? It's not going to generate a grade, even though you've said what the right answer is. It's more just a way to get some formative feedback and have conversations. But if you did want to get the data, as far as what students chose, what answer choice they chose from that, you can hit export here. And there's even an export option up here, right? So if I close this, then I can always come back before I exit out of the whole tool. I can export that data, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's go ahead and export it now. So it opens up your storage file on the Mimio panel. The way I remember it is I just always put it into download, right? So I'm going to select download. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to send an Excel spreadsheet to the download there. Okay. Oh, looks like our class closed. We might have to start it over. All right, let's start it over, guys. Sorry, we have a new code. And so everybody's gonna have to put in a new code because that one closed. Code is 734751. Thank you, Chris. So let's go to the responder. Remember, the responder is just kind of a gamification of your classroom. And it's kind of a race to see who can click in first. So once you hit start as the teacher, it's going to give you a loud drum roar from this little icon here, and the little drum mallets will move. And then that's going to keep going until one of the students in your class clicks the button there that says be fast. So the first time you do it, it might take a while for the students to figure out, hey, where do I click? But eventually they'll get it, and then it'll be a race to see who can do it first. All right, so if I hit start, you start clicking. And I won. I was the first one to do it. So then you can reset that, do it again, right? When I do it, you'll see it shows be fast, right? So that's where the students would click. So another student won this time. They beat me because I was showing you guys that. But what I like about this is now students are that first you get that loud sound, it gets their attention, they're going to pay attention. And the majority of students are going to want to win. And really, it doesn't matter what they win. They just want to win. And so what they win is up to you. Whatever the reward is for being the first to click in is up to you and what you want it to be. It could be anything. And so you set it up the way you want. It could be to come up and write on the Mimio panel to share the answer that they got, something to encourage that kind of interaction. And so you can use that anytime you want. Let's do that one more time. See if... Dang, Sharita's fast. All right, good. So that's the responder. The last one I'm going to share with you today is the selector. So the selector is just a way to randomly select student names. And you can select more than just one. So if you wanted, depending on how many students are in your air class, you can select several names and it'll give you just a list of names. But what I like about this is that it kind of gives every student an opportunity to share and some accountability because they know, wait, my name could be called. And so I need to be paying attention because I want to know what the answer is or what to respond. So if I hit start, and then it randomly selects a name. And so what does that student win? Again, it's up to you. However you want to set it up and use it, you determine what it is they're going to win. And then you can reset that. It puts that name back into the box. So every time you do the random name selector, the probability of being called is the same, right? In our case, it's 1 in 3, right? So then you just reset that and use it, and then a new student's name comes up, or maybe the same student. But it's a way to eliminate the students of just yelling out answers or the same 3 kids always raising their hand, and then you have to pick a student. This way you can do it random, and it's a little bit more fair, and I think it'll encourage students to pay a little bit more attention, and then you have more engagement in your classroom. And so these are the 3 basic tools that you can use with your students. And again, I would just leave this little menu bar floating, and then you use it whenever you want to use it during your lesson, right? So you would do your lesson the way you might always do it, but now you have an option to break it up a little bit and get some formative feedback with the voter. Or you create some gamification to see who can click in first and when to do something in your classroom. Or the random name selector, if you want to ask some questions to get some participation from a team of students or individual students, then you can use that random name selector. There is this message tool, right? By default, it's turned off. But when I turn it on, you can see the little circle with the X through it, the line through it goes away. So with message, that means now students have the option to click on the message portion, and then now they can actually type a message and send it to Air Class. Just like with the name, there's no way for you to monitor or control what the students are going to type and send. And when they send it, it floats across the top of the screen with their name and whatever they typed. And I can't stop it and I can't control it. So it's kind of a cool little tool to use, but you want to make sure that you have that trust built with your students. Because I could see the benefit if you're here writing, your back might be turned and you're doing a lesson and the student wants to ask a question or needs something. And so it's a way to get your attention without them yelling something out. But that's if you find a way to integrate that and you're comfortable with that, then share that with us. But by default, that is turned off. And I like what Sharita likes my tie. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But by default, that's turned off. So you can just leave that off until you feel ready to use that with your students. But that's not really a necessity. Really, those 3 green tools are the ones that you want to be using. Again, you have the manager that allows you to get students in if they've got kicked out for any reason or came late to class. And then, of course, that export again to export that data. Last thing to share with you, I'm going to exit that. And then I'm going to go over to the panel and I'm going to go into the files just to show you what that data looks like. All right, so I'm going to open up my files. And if you remember, I sent that document, that Excel sheet to downloads. It's not there. So I wonder if it went. I think that's where I sent it. Although it did crash on me, so. No. I think I have another one. Check the owner. See him here for that. I did one earlier to test it out, and I do have that Excel sheet here. So I'll just show you what that data looks like once you get that. So it should open here, and if you've signed into your iCloud accounts, you should be able to move it from the files folder here on the panel to your OneDrive or Google Drive. So you'll see here that it's not going to grade it for you. It's just going to populate that data for you, right? And so at that time, here was my student. This was the answer choice that they selected, and this was the correct answer. And so it'll show all of that data and even how long it took them to select the answer. And so every student that you have, it'll populate that and give you a little bit of accuracy there. Just, very broad data with some other information and then a graph. Every time you do that voter activity, when you have Air Class running, it's going to generate a tab for it, right? So this is my first question. And then I have another question where I did the same thing. And so it'll generate a whole new tab with that second question. And then for every question after, it'll generate a new tab in that one Air Class. Once you close that Air Class, then it'll create the next time you come, it creates a new Excel sheet. Okay? Just remember that if you don't export before you close, you'll lose the opportunity to get some of this data. So hopefully, yes.
Herman, I have a question.
Sure.
If you're in Air Class and then bounce out to another screen on the Mimio board, will that cut off your Air Class session, or can you go back into Air Class and ask the question?
So like if I'm in Air Class and I switch between different inputs,
Yeah.
because it's a tool, it should stay on, but we can test that because right now I'm on the panel side, so I can open Air Class. I'm gonna go ahead and enter it so I can start it. And so my air class is actually running, but then I can pull up my menu and switch over to the mini PC. And the air class is still running. So you should be able to, so let's say throughout your lesson, you're switching from your document camera to the mini PC to Clever Share to just the panel to the notes. So no matter what input you're switching to, that air class should stay running. So you should be able to manage it through that whole class time, no matter what you're using. And because it's one of those tools, you should have access to it no matter what you're sharing on the screen. Good question, Chris. I hadn't thought of that one before. Any other questions from our participants today? Well, I hope you guys feel like Air Class is a tool that can help create more student engagement throughout your lessons. I know teachers are always looking for different ways to use these panels to engage the students more outside of just having them come up and interact with it directly. And so I think this is one easy way to just start your air class and then get students engaged and participating and knowing that there's accountability. Their name might be called, that they might want to win the responder and be the first one to click in, and even just to give some anonymous feedback on whatever you might be asking them during the lesson. Well, if you guys have any questions as you're watching this in our recorded webinar, feel free to contact your instructional technology specialist that works with your campus, or contact me, Herman Seufert, and we'll be more than happy to help come to your campus and do a session and show you guys how to really dig into that air class feature.
Thanks, Herman.
No, thank you guys. Pretty cool, right? Everyone likes it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's a great tool, and just want to maybe share something, one use on the message. I know I shared it with some teachers, and we did an activity. Let's say they were reviewing students' multiplication or what have you. So we went to that tool, and say 8 times 5, whatever you call out, right? Whatever student can key it in first. And what happens is it's like a horse race. Whoever gets it first, their name kind of goes across the board first. And so they kind of like that activity as well.
Okay.
And another thing we did.
That's really good, Shrita. We need to make sure that that we share that in our actual recording, because I hadn't thought of that, but that's great. Like, so you give them a question and then they use the message to answer.
Yeah. Well,
So
yes,
whoever's first, their name goes across.
That's correct. And during one of the sessions I did, actually it was with middle school teachers. So, it was 10, 15 or whatever. I'm about 15 or so. So it looked really neat with all their names going across the screen with different colors. And they were pretty excited themselves, just who can key it in.
Yeah.
But it was a way to review just very easily, a concept or what have you, to get the students engaged. And another tip that I shared with them, if they wanted to keep their data, organized, you can create a folder prior to starting Air Server and just call it Air Server, right? And so when you want to save your data, you just direct it to your Air Server folder, and you always have it, pretty quickly. You can get to it. So
yeah. That is a better way to organize and set it up so that you know where it's going to go. Great tips, Shrita. Thanks. I'm going to incorporate that when I share with campuses.
you're welcome, sir.